everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Helen Hill's Part 2 workshop. We are so excited to have her back with us and to give us some practical tips and tricks to unleash the real us, or as you said, what is it? The most magnificent us, Helen, which is a great word to use. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass this off to Helen. I'll mute myself. And as always, feel free to throw any chats, comments, questions, concerns into the chat box over here as we roll along. Okay.
Rolling along will be the way. Let me see if I can actually make this right. Yes. Is that working? Can you see that? Yes, we got it. We got it. It's only taken me about 10 presentations to work that one out. So hello and welcome back to those that weren't here before, and hello to those that were. No, that's the other way around, isn't it? You can tell how I'm going to go today. You're going to have a lesson today in the Helen winging it and brain all over the place, to be honest, because I have had one of those weeks where suddenly everything lands. So I've been darting all over the place. But you know what? I thought, I'm talking about being you, and this is going to be well and truly me. So let's crack on with it. So last week, just for a quick recap, we started off looking at, well, first of all, I had a rant about why we should be ourselves, but then we started looking at, first of all, who are you? So that, though it seemed like a silly question, who are you really? How do you want to show up in the world? And that seemed to have got a few people thinking, actually. It's been really nice to see the responses in the Slack channel and going out on LinkedIn and getting tagged in posts and stuff. So absolutely fantastic stuff. But the people have just gone, you know what? This is me, and I'm putting it out there. So if you didn't catch this, you'll be able to catch up on when the recordings go live, but really looking at that essence of how you want to show up in the world and who you want to show up for. So as it says there, you can be a hippo if you want. I would choose to be a sloth, but that's the way it is. We can all be different and embrace our differences. And the second part was that thing of permission. So actually allowing yourself to then show up as that person, to make sure that you're saying, this is absolutely okay. This is fine to be me, to show up as I want to do. Nobody can dull me. Nobody can tell me to dull myself and pull myself back. And just, like I say, that permission to be vulnerable, really, and by that, I don't mean sharing everything about your life. I just mean that vulnerability in doing something that feels like a big, brave step to push yourself out there. Because we all have an underlying fear with it, whether it's that your clients are going to see it and run away, that you will attract the attention of someone you don't like a troll or something. I had a very interesting proposal on Instagram last night. Those are not the people I want to attract to me, but it's then how you deal with it. So in fact, I showed it to my fella and said it was actually aimed for him. So that was my way of dealing with it. Here you go, Graham. A proposal for you. So it's, like I say, it's how you deal with it and how you get past those fears and what boundaries you put in place, which is going to be a big thing we talk about today. So I did want to just check in. How did you get on? So if you did start to think about these points, did anything surprising come to light for you? So was there something that when you were thinking, oh, this is how I want to show up, was there anything that shocked you? And second of all, what was the feeling that came up in relation to this? So you can just start to pop those in the chat. You can do it now, you can add to it later, I don't mind. But it'd just be really interesting to see what kind of things were arising for those of you that did take that step last week. And I love that little cloud. I mean, I actually made some badges with that on, because I love it so much. So there's 4 things we're going to talk about this week. So, no, 5, because there's 7 altogether. So one of the things I want to talk about first, and this is where most of us actually start, before we've done the work of like, who do you want to be? A lot of us go straight in with creating a brand, coming up with your name, coming up with your logo, your colours, your imagery, the way you want to write. But obviously, it's really important to do that other stuff first, because your brand is about more than just that picture you put out there. So my little unlikely genius logo or my falling off the ladder logo. Your brand is everything about you. It's the way you talk, the way you write, the colours, the way you interact with people, how you show up on social media, how you dress even, everything is involved in your brand. And that is what can become a big sticking point for some people because they don't feel like they can then put themselves out there, you know, in my case, pajamaed glory, because I live in pajamas most of the time. It's actually quite rare I've got jeans on today. And generally always have animal print clothing or earrings or something on. You know, the amount of Zoom calls I'm on and people go, what is dangling from your ears? And it's a dinosaur or a sloth or a panda or, you know, whatever. But that's part of me, and they come to know that I just love an animal. And I embrace that now. And people actually talk to me about it and talk about how my brand really represents that side of me, the daft me, the wanting to be, just do something a bit different. So what I would say with your brand is don't be afraid to do something different. I played it very safe for a long time. Although I had this quirky name, Unlikely Genius, I never quite fully embraced it. And it was black and white branding, and it felt I tried to almost make it look corporate, which just didn't suit me or the brand. And it's only now, after about 4 iterations of it, that it's finally at a place where I feel like it's me. So you can have a brand that's unexpected. It doesn't have to be your name. I mean, can you imagine if I'd gone for Helen Hill Designs instead of Unlikely Genius? That is a massive difference. And that's not to say don't use your name, but I have got quite the simplest unimaginative name I think possibly going. You know, it wouldn't, although it would have been my name, I don't think it would have represented me in the same way. So really just having a think about you showing up and also how your brand will show up for you, because those two things are inextricably linked and it has to represent you in some way. And as a large part of that earlier work, it's about finding your tone of voice. It has taken me a long time to do that and a lot of practice. It will not happen overnight unless you are a writer, possibly. But I started off very much playing it safe, very much just sticking to facts, writing these blog posts that, you know, were very like 3 tips for this, very straightforward. Now I've brought my personality through, and part of that has just been the permission, allowing myself to write the way that I speak, getting over this belief that to be a writer, I had to use the big words. I had to be like Stephen Fry or Russell Brand or something, coming out with all these massive convoluted words. Not the way whatsoever. For me, a big part of my tone of voice is writing conversationally, because that is the way I am and it's the way I speak, and I find other ways quite pretentious, and it's not part of who I am. So when you can find that tone of voice, play with it, experiment with it on different platforms, where's the right place for you to share that? And that has been a huge factor for me, especially obviously in writing the book. That has been a big part of helping me discover my tone of voice. I was almost trying to hold back with that until I realized, no, I can write this conversationally. This is my book. I have the power. I can do it how I want. And the main feedback that people have loved is the tone of voice and the fact that they feel like they can hear me reading it to them, because it's just conversational, it's down to earth, it's sarcastic, it's got stupid anecdotes in there, but it's also very useful. And that is just me to a T, I think. So really start to just look at how you can get your tone of voice across a little bit more. What are those values that you want to represent? How do you show your personality day to day, and how can that come across in your writing, your visuals, your brand? If you need to get a brand designer involved, it's what they do, but don't be afraid to go with something a little bit different. And if you can have a backstory to your brand or to your messaging or the way you portray yourself, even better. So one of the first questions I get asked is, what on earth is Unlikely Genius about? Why have you called it that? And the reasoning behind is because I'm a blonde, clumsy idiot and I fall over all the time. So people think that I am not going to be very sensible. I've grown up with a very intelligent older sister who got all A's, so I felt like I had to live up to that and didn't feel like I was, even though I was getting a lot of A's, but I was getting some B's. You know, I didn't feel as clever as her, and I was constantly living up to that. I had 4 A's at A level, but I found my feet at degree and masters, ironically, and it switched. But I always felt like I was behind in some way. And my best friend is a double PhD with a photographic memory, and I sat next to her in all the classes and stuff, and obviously the imposter syndrome there was rife. In fact, I think the only reason I got my last GCSE was because I copied her half of the time. So, you know, those things added up to being a story that when I got to my master's degree and my lecturer actually, when I presented an idea, went, oh, that's actually quite good. I was like, yeah, I do have some of those, you know, they're in there, they're in there. So that contributed again. And it was actually that week that Unlikely Genius was born, when we had to come up with a way of promoting ourselves for the end of master's show. So like I say, it then evolved with me, but let it become part of you. So I feel like I've gone on a bit there with that one, but I think it's a really important point to get your brand right as a business owner. So now we're going to go into some of the practical tips. And we did touch on this one last week. But this is about, once you have that idea of who you are and you've got your brand, how do you actually start to get out there? Because it feels like a massive leap to go from feeling here and a little bit insecure, maybe, or a little bit worried or scared about doing it, to being, you know, this uber confident, I don't care, I am me kind of personality. And I'm still not there. I still have wobbles. I have days where I'm right down the bottom still, but I'm more skirting towards the higher end right now, because I've learned to embrace being me. And if people don't like me, they are not my people. And I feel like I say that to a lot of people a lot of the time. If someone isn't right for you, they are not your people. You know, whether it's a client, someone in your network, you can, you know, move on to the people that are. But a big part of this is finding the communities who will support you. So I've said there, start small and start safe. Now, you might be someone that wants to just leap in and go, hello, here I am, this is me, embrace it, go full in. If so, Jesus, go for it. I would say absolutely throw yourself in. However, a lot of you will need a step-by-step, and you might actually, on reflection, think your audience might need a step-by-step. They might get a bit of a shock if you go from one extreme to the other. So the way I built my confidence was to get in some small groups where I could practice being myself. And I did start to explain this last week about the video group I was in and how I accidentally kind of ended up in there and almost just wanted to challenge Becky, the owner of it, to prove to her that some people just would never do video. Well, here I am, so thinking, oh, you know, how that's gone. But you will have some supportive places too. The Teamwrkr channel for a start. Start popping things in there, test the waters, ask people how something sounds, or just even, you don't even have to do that, just put something in and, you know, see if anyone likes it or comments or gives you positives. Because I tell you what, it's very, very rare in 4 years of me posting stuff now that I've had negative comments. And the ones that are, you can tell that it's their issue, not mine. And it's just people that do stuff for getting a rise out of others. So it's not a reflection of you. If you do get negatives, really sit and reflect on the fact that it's unlikely to be anything to do with you at all. It is the other person. But if you can find a place to release a bit of you at a time, to find what you're comfortable with, so establish that level. I'm comfortable right now with doing written posts, and that's what I'm going to focus on. Absolutely, go with it. And then you might think, oh, well, maybe I'll do like a carousel post with my picture in some of the pictures in some of the posts. Maybe then I'll do a little live, just a like 2-minute thing, just to test the waters. Or maybe, well, on video first. I would always say try video first and then go to lives. Then maybe you'll start accepting some interviews if people start coming to you and things. And it all builds and builds, that you gradually build that kind of feeling of, oh, that was all right. I'll try the next bit and I'll try the next bit. So think about what you're comfortable with. Think about who you're comfortable with. So whether you want to do it in Teamwrkr or LinkedIn, in Twitter, in a Facebook group, wherever it might be. I can recommend some Facebook groups if you want to try them. So what social platform are you safer on, do you think? Some people have a massive phobia of LinkedIn, whereas they'll do anything. They'll dance around the kitchen on TikTok. If that's your balance, go with where you're safe first. You might be the other way around and think, I feel much better on LinkedIn. TikTok, no way, that's where my stance is. I just can't do that one, but I will do Instagram and occasionally not dance, but prance about. And finally, when. So when, what did I put there? Sorry. Oh, yes. So you might decide that socials are not the thing yet. So it's about whether you start with your website. So do you want to try working on your tone of voice there first and then pulling bits out to share with the world and gradually build from there as well? So yeah, you don't have to go all in with everything at once. Work out the when of, I want to do this one first, and I will aim to do an Instagram live by Christmas or something. You know, just have a little plan in place that you can gradually work towards it and gradually step towards being visible as yourself. I love the thing that I think it was from Atomic Habits of 1% better every day. Just do one little thing, whether it's to share one extra fact, do 1 minute extra on a live, or even 10 seconds extra on a live, whether it's to put yourself forward for an interview. Think about what that 1% is, or even 5-10%, whatever you feel comfortable with as your pushing point. I would never say just go for, like, you know, the extreme if you're not comfortable. So all of that adds up to you sort of just finding your building blocks to get there. And then boundaries, the thing that I'm rubbish with. So I have had to really work on boundaries the last year because I'm a people pleaser. So I let people just mess me around with dates and content and going out of scope and all sorts. So I've had to really put procedures in place in my business around boundaries. But what we're talking about here are your boundaries about you personally. So what will you share and what will you not share? There might be things in your life that you think that is totally off limits. Absolutely. But what I would say, understand where your boundary lies before you ever get into an interview situation or something. Because if you don't understand where they are, that's where when you're in an interview, you end up letting something slip and then regretting it. So, you know, I've had this on my podcast that someone had said something he wished he hadn't, and it was only once it went live, he went, oh, God, I shouldn't have said that. So I've edited it and taken it out, but it's a lot easier if you kind of have that boundary in the first place. So it might be that you want to make sure your kids never come up in conversation. You want to keep that home life very private. It might be something to do with your health. You might be very private about money. Just really think about those areas that could be not a sticking point for you, but a point where you don't want people to go there, and make sure you have a clear idea of that before you start kind of, you know, going out into the world. So like, for example, I'm very open about my illness, about MS and degenerative disc disease, and increasingly so about mental health. But there is a boundary to what I will say about how far that got for me in terms of like mental health and depression and things like that. People don't need to know the details. I will advocate for mental health. I will advocate for MS. They don't need to know my specific depths, if you like. So that's a boundary for me. And that's not just to protect me, that's to protect my family. So before my dad passed away last year, I rarely talked about anything, actually, because I knew I didn't want to stress him out. So that was a big boundary for me. I wouldn't really talk about this stuff. My mum can deal with it a lot better, and she knows a lot more about it, and she's not as fragile. And I've kind of preempted a few things with her, you know, with being in the book. So I had to warn her that certain things were coming out. So, but I still have a line where I won't talk about it. So just really think about who else you need to protect, not just you as well. And the impact it'll have on your business. You know, I've written a book that all involves mental health and stuff, so it's quite appropriate that I speak out about this stuff. You might not think it is for what you do, your clients and all of that kind of side of things. So just kind of make sure you have a bit of a plan, a bit of a brain dump about where that stands for you. And then this is the fun bit where you get to play. So tricks, there are tricks to make you feel better, especially with video and photography. So there's a lot of tech things you can do. Obviously, you can use filters on things like Instagram, or even, you know, if you're any good with editing photos on your phone and stuff, you can use them at any time for any pictures you put out and about. It took me 3 years to have a photo shoot. I did that last year, and mixed results, and not the photographer's fault, mine, just because I don't like photos of myself. But I managed to pick out about 9 or 10 that I actually quite like, and I use those all the time. So as Laura, I've now chopped my hair off, so I probably need them doing again because it's obvious they're not recent. But that was a big step for me. So you might just be a case of, you know, if you're going to get your face out there on imagery, how can you make yourself feel better about it? Some people say you shouldn't use filters. I'm not talking about the ones where your lips are like the size of your face and you've got big black caterpillar eyebrows, but just the ones where it puts like a black and white filter or a little tiny something that touches you up. If that helps you feel better, to do it, to help with the rest of them. They can do them, you do you. But also you'll notice, probably, in fact, you were on the call before anyway, I do have a ring light, which I'm still battling with how to kind of set that up so it doesn't shine lights in my eyes, but it's amazing what they do for making you look more human. So I do recommend those. That one was about £11 off Amazon. And I will sometimes even just use it on calls if it's quite dark in here. You know, they're not to be used as a proper lamp, but they can really help just build your confidence a little bit, although as long as your forehead isn't shiny. And the big thing for me has been to stand up. So it's amazing the difference in your confidence if you stand up and you're able to move around a bit more free than when you sat down. And when I sit down, I'm very conscious of my rolls of belly fat and my, you know, the extra biscuits I've eaten and all of that kind of stuff. I feel a lot better stood up. I feel a lot more energized. It's even energized my work a lot more, never mind my presenting and my talking and things like that, to actually just stand up a lot of the day. I have a lot more energy now. And obviously, you know, you're in charge of how much of your head and shoulders you show, what you're wearing and stuff. But even though you can only see from shoulders down, if it's important to you that you're dressed a certain way or dressed fully rather than pajamas like me, then do that. Do what makes you comfortable. You can even get things like prompts and auto cue apps that can help, you know, if you want a script. I don't script things because I find I panic if I go off script. So I'm better just winging it, but I'm used to it by now. You know, courses like Videotastic, she talks about looking at the camera, which I'm not doing very well today. I'm looking at all of you over there. But looking at the camera, and what the best tip for that is to have a post-it note with your bullets right next to your camera up there. And that means that if you're presenting, you know you're looking over there at the camera rather than everywhere else. And then the things I love, which some people are like, oh, no, never. One is to have very cheesy music on. I've just had 90s cheesy music on before this call with my big headphones on, and I've been prancing about to Ace of Base and I'm a Barbie Girl and Backstreet Boys and a million other things that just got my energy right up because I just needed that today. And it gave, just having 10 or 20 minutes of that gave me a break from the work that I've just been doing that was quite frantic, to switch off, calm down and get into mode for this. So use music wisely. You might want really chilled out stuff. You might want classical, or gosh, I had a playlist on last night for my writing group, nearly sent me to sleep. So I had to switch that and put something else on that was more energetic. So look at your flows of your energy and your mood, and that will help you be more confident and present more confidently as well. Belt out a power ballad if you want. I mean, I hate Mariah Carey, but I was belting out one of her songs earlier. Another one, and this is not just for if you're on camera, but before anything, like even a job interview, if you're going to be interviewing for a new contract or something, is the power pause. There's actually research now to show that the power pause works. So if you don't know what that is, it's literally standing with your legs a little apart, get your hands into fists, put them just above your hips, stand really, really tall, and just breathe in really deep and breathe out, and do it a few times. And I first saw this on Grey's Anatomy and was like, what on earth are they doing? They do it before surgery, but it can really just make you feel tall, confident, and the breathing calms you down. So as cheesy as it sounds, what's to lose in giving it a try? I would never have done that 2 years ago, but I love it now. And like I say, along with that, breathing. So deep breaths. And before you post something, before you write something, just really calm yourself down and get in the headspace, away from sort of thoughts of client work, and do all those to ground you before you then write or talk or prance about on TikTok, whatever you might be doing. Who knows? But that it's about that bringing you into the moment and into yourself rather than in client mode. So they're just little tips and tricks. Like I said, there is all sorts out there, but find what works for you. Sometimes it's about having a little rigmarole, as I call it, but people call it transition time, particularly for neurodiverse people. It can be very hard to switch from one topic to another. So quite often they will have a transition time. Some people it's 15 minutes, some people it's 2 hours, but they have a process they need to go through to go, right, I'm putting that down and now I'm doing that, and to get in that space. And it's the same for being yourself. Sometimes we have to put corporate head down and go, yeah, this is me. Whereas tomorrow morning, I'm going to have to do the opposite because I have to do a massive tender bid. And I've been told to dress up and not be in this room. And, you know, I have to put corporate head on. That's going to be fun after 4 years of going, I hate corporate. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting transition. And I'm going to have to do it the other way. But a lot of this is stuff that I will do to feel more confident when I have to stand up in a two-hour presentation and talk about accessibility tomorrow. Anyway. And number 7 is take your time. So like I said earlier, it will take time. You won't just suddenly do all this overnight. It will be a case of experimenting, of learning, reflecting, making sure you do that regular reflection of what worked, what didn't, how did it feel, what was the fear underneath? How can you shake off a habit and build a new one? How can you shake off a limit or a limiting belief and build a new one? Learning new things, it might be new tech, it might be finding the right group you want to be in, what you want to do. It's on your own deadline. So if you want to set one, fine, or you might just do it organically like me, but just make sure there is purposeful action heading towards you being yourself and putting yourself out there, because you're allowed, you are allowed, and you should give yourself permission. And you know what, there possibly is no end in sight with it, because we're all a work in progress, right? So I certainly am, like I say, and on different days, I can be different levels of that scale. And what I've had to really learn to do, because my energy can fluctuate so much and my mood, that I've had to really find those ways of picking myself up before certain things. So like if I'm going to do a presentation like today or a coaching call, I have different preparation to if I'm just going to sit at my desk and work on my own, in which case I can do it in my pajamas and not brush my hair, who cares? But you know, it's just having that little bit of awareness in your day. And then finally, oh no, it did come up. Have fun. Look at the raccoon. He's amazing. I picked him because he reminds me of the cover of my favourite book called Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. Amazing book. And she's totally my humour. But yeah, have fun with it, because you know what, it comes across. People can tell fun and happiness is infectious even. People will be drawn to you. They will follow your story. They will like your passion. They will like your enthusiasm, and they will want to be in your world. So that's not to say like, you know, fake happiness and what do they call it? Toxic positivity and all that. It's not that stuff. It's just having that warmth, that engagement and that passion for what you're doing and letting it come through in your personality, not feeling like you have to be someone else. So, oh, look at that, nearly perfectly timed. So once again, I feel like I always rattle through these things, but if anyone's got any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, which I'm just trying to get up and it's hiding from me, because I was just going to, did say there were some comments. Let's have a look. I just saw that. I'm glad someone knows it from Grey's Anatomy too. Amazing show. I love it. McDreamy. He rocked up in something I was watching the other day, and I love McDreamy. So more confidence around business identity and services you want to focus on. Fabulous. And it is a happy little cloud. I love the cloud. Expressing boundaries more clearly in personal and professional setting. Fabulous. More pink. Yes. And renewed fearlessness to start multiple businesses and brands. Yes. I love it. I'm intrigued to hear about that one. People with photographic memory. No, I can't fathom them either. I mean, there's a reason why I have about 17 post-it notepads on my desk and then a pile of post-its that I've written on and still not actually looked at or actioned. Which Mariah song? Oh God, it was. Bear with me. I'll have to stop sharing for that one. I'll come back to that one. Mandated different room and outfit for an accessibility presentation. Yes, that's very true, actually. The irony in that is not lost. Yeah, even a different personality, which is exactly what I left corporate for, because I didn't want any of that stuff anymore. But it is for I'm working for an agency whose end client is a massive part of the NHS, so I have to be, and it's like millions of pounds contract. So why they're letting me in? I've only worked for them for 3 weeks and I've not actually done any work yet. And they've just gone like, Helen, come and do this £1 million bid or something. Like, right, yeah, that's logical. A visual memory. I am with you there, Josie. Very, very, visual. I have to draw things out to remember that I spent my GCSEs and stuff drawing out like notes and stuff. So that's interesting. Husband relies on you to find everything. So I call it the man looking. He went in the garage for something last week and said, I've had a thorough look. I said, have you? Went in, and within about 3 seconds I found the thing. So yes. So yeah, there's just my link tree up there if any of you want to follow or come and join my accountability space, which is properly live now. And your biscuits, we're just having fun in there. Daily check-in to say what you need to do, check if you've done it. And it says there's 12 left of my book. There's not. There's 6 of the colour edition, I think, because I did an event last week and sold some as well. So it's only 6 of that one, but the standard edition, however many Amazon and Co keep printed. But come and check me out on fallingofftheladder.com for that, or business coaching, or courses, workshops, all sorts of stuff. And what I shall do is find the Mariah song, because I feel like that is an important thing I need to check, because I really don't like her. I call her Mariah scary. But, when a song comes on and you're halfway through and then you think, oh, this is the person I hate. Yeah.
But
So has anyone
really
got
catchy.
any? It was Fantasy.
I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play it just a little bit.
I do have a Falling Off the Ladder playlist, by the way, on Spotify. If you want to. The QR code's in the front of the book, and I asked all the people that featured in the book and stuff to give me a song that summed up their freelance life.
Adorable. I love that. That's super fun. Oh, wait, yes, please send that to us and to me, because when I do weekly wrap-ups, I was like, what's something fun that everyone can relate to? Memes, a playlist. I imagine there's some really funny songs in there.
Oh yeah, the variety is amazing.
You guys hear
She's
this?
off. Not properly, no.
Oh my gosh, hold on. Can you hear this?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the one.
Oh,
I feel like you should have roller skates on for that one or something. Yeah.
Go Mariah. Go Helen. Oh my god.
Maybe she's growing on me. I hated Lady Gaga till recently, and now I love her.
I just needed to know which one, and that's one of my favorites. That's a good song. It's a good song.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Helen.
That and the one that no worries.
Thank you.
No worries. I feel like I'm definitely winging it now, but you know what? That's fine. That's the way we do things sometimes.
I think it felt very natural, which is good.
Yeah, I suppose I'm used to talking about this stuff, but
I also love this. Our chat was really popping. Everyone kept chiming in, which I love to see. But
yes,
Josie, you and I have been chatting. We chatted a little bit throughout the week about you finally honing in on the niche that you wanted to. And you mentioned it over here as well. I wanted to follow up with you and see if you would be willing to elaborate on what this past week has meant for you and your business post Helen.
Sure. I mean, I think I got like a little bit of inspiration from Helen and like my business coach and like a small business development center that's like local to me in Ohio, and like just a little bit of like the same energy from so many directions, like eventually pushes you where you want to go. Right. So like, as of this morning, I have an LLC called Bespoke Digital Solutions. And like, because basically the thing that I give to people that I work with is something that's custom to them and the systems they use and how it fits in with their business, as opposed to like cookie cutter solutions that a lot of people give. And then, the guy that I met with yesterday from the local small business group, but he was like asking very pointed questions. And I was like, oh, like, I'm sure he read my face. Cause at the end he was like, I hope you don't feel like I was poking at you. And I'm like, no. Like, it was hard to hear some of that. But pointing out that the things that I say I want to do is not on my website. And it's like, oh, right, I need to actually represent that. And, it's in my head, but you can't read my mind. So like putting that stuff out there. So I'm like working on like the formal stuff with the LLC and like with the accountant and the insurance and the bank, like whatever, I got to work on that. But I'm feeling better about the direction I'm heading and like the things I want to focus on, to like not offer 10 things. Like I still do them, but not like blast them all 10, because then I feel like it doesn't help people find me and stuff. So I'm like, feeling a lot better about that. And I mean, having a company name, like, holy cow, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
That's
no,
incredible, Josie.
Yeah, I agree with the 10 things, because I'm constantly like battling to put everything out. And when I was at this exhibition last week, and I had my Falling Off the Ladder banner, my book award one, and then my Unlike a Genius one, and people were coming up going, what do you do? So I actually put the Unlike a Genius one down, because I was like, you know what, I don't need the work right now. I'm busy till like next July. So I just put that away and just thought, just focus on the coaching and the book. And it was incredible, the difference of when people then talk to you, of just being that bit clearer. So I've got to get used to that. I don't know.
That's incredible.
All the things. Let's do all the things.
And
shiny, shiny.
I've heard it's really hard to not only identify your niche, but also when you start marketing to that niche and you're like, hey, I want you, and you're talking to like a small subset of people, you're like, but I'm not talking to everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose all these other people. And it's like, well, no, not necessarily. You're actually going to get the people you're hoping for, because you're talking directly to them and offering directly like what they are looking for. So
oh yes,
it feels better to not have all the clutter, I guess.
Yeah, I've only just niched with the e-learning design. For the coaching and stuff, I've always been very much about, I'm here to help freelancers. That's my thing. But the Unlikely Genius, I just did any project. But then I really found by last year that I was just fed up of writing about finance or printers or just really dull stuff. And I was like, you know what, I want to write about physical, mental health, the environment, leadership, personal development. So I've just niched, it's still like 5 or 6 areas, but into that kind of bracket. So, and it gives me the permission now to say, that's not for me. If something comes along and it's, oh, do you want to write like 17 finance modules on accounting for lawyers? No, really don't. So, but I can then also pass that off to people in my network who do want it. And that comes back other ways as well, when they then get a piece of work on health or something. The biggest project I have now, which actually is just coming to an end, but now they've decided to renew it, even though I took something else on now. That's been 3 years of work, and it's been just short of £40,000 just for that client, and that's come through someone else saying, that's not for me, but Helen will be perfect for it, and referring them to me. I'm trying to throw stuff his way now in return, but nothing comes in that's right for him. But so you're having those quality connections, and this is why the engagement in the community is so important. That that's actually just for the one piece of work. They've now since referred me to 2 other divisions within the NHS, and ironically now I'm working for another one. But yeah, that's been, I don't know how much work. I should really add up the numbers, but put it this way, the first part was 40,000. And if he hadn't done that, and I hadn't randomly talked to the miserable guy at the back of a room in some training who just looked like he didn't want anyone to speak to him, and I went over going, hello, he wouldn't have known who I was. And I actually drew him out of himself a bit, and we chatted all day, and then he referred me for some work. So it's so important. Yeah, that's totally off track from where we started, but I just thought that was a useful anecdote.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder to just put yourself out there, and to reiterate what you've been saying all this time, Helen, which is to go forth and be your best self, be your most real self, because naturally all of our personalities attract a certain type of people, right? And if we go against that kind of grain, the more I think about what you're saying is like, you're not going to meet the people that you click with best, with the potential clients that you might work with best, because we're trying to put on this face of what we have been told is the only way that professional looks like, right? Like the professional only looks like a suit. It only looks like, you know, like your natural hair color. It only looks like this and that. And like I'm preparing for my graduate school and thinking about interviews and applications. And in the quarantine last year, I had my hair dyed like what I wanted for a really long time. I dyed it all red. And it was basically from the root down to the ends. And something my mom was like, yeah, sure, go for it. But you know, but then when things started opening up and then we were thinking about work, she goes, are you going to dye it back? Like, what's going to happen? And I was like, but so oddly enough, I was like, I have felt so excited about my hair than any other time that I've had hair, which is pretty much forever. And it's because it's been red. Like it's been this color that I'm so excited by, and that's a hassle to maintain, but it's just so much fun to me. and I think about how do I, and especially entering the freelancing world by accident, and then really starting to get the hang of it, starting to learn and build the community around other freelancers. It makes me think about, well, maybe I don't need to dye my hair back, right? Maybe I don't need to do X, Y, and Z to get into these places that people say this is where you need to be. Maybe where I need to be is just where I am. And
yeah,
I'll keep going that way.
And those beliefs and those people that are saying that, that's their hang-ups. And yes, it's difficult if they're the hiring committee and stuff like that. And there are certain professions where you won't get away with it, like lawyers and things like that. You know, it's probably a generalization, but you're expected to still be suited and booted and all the fancy stuff. They certainly won't be rocking up in the pajamas. But like, I do think that when you are on things like LinkedIn and someone says, this is a professional community, you shouldn't be talking about this here, and all that kind of stuff, which you do get occasionally. I do seem to attract these people. That's their hang up, and that's them not realizing that the world of work has moved on, and that people talk, you know, if you were in an office, you'd be talking about what you had for tea last night and my rabbits and your kids and whatever else, whatever you did at the weekend. So why the hell shouldn't people be doing that online? You know, and we're all online now, we're all at home, and actually, well, most of us are still, you know, that provides connection that you wouldn't be getting elsewise. And that's why some freelancers feel lonely, because they sit there thinking, oh, I can't engage and I can't be myself and I can't put myself out there. And actually, I think I said it last week, but some of my best friends now are people I've met that are freelancers and business owners, and they are around the world. You know, I've got a really good friend in Italy, and I've got loads of them in London and stuff. And, you know, and I've actually started to meet up with them face to face now. And my business partner, who's in Australia, for crying out loud, you know, I speak to her more than my mother or Graham, pretty much. I think it's like all day, every day. Even though she's now back in Sydney and the time difference, you know, my insomnia helps. But like, yeah, you know, when you get those connections, you don't know what could come from it. And I would never have thought 2 years ago at the start of the pandemic that I would now have that be the future business with Sally. We would be coming to the end of writing our first kids book. I'm about to start illustrating it, which is a lifelong dream for me, to write an illustrated kids book. And that's going to happen, all because she met me on a hashtag on Twitter. And that's just phenomenal to me that could happen. So do it, people. Get out there, fight for your cause and stuff. Yeah.
That's pretty, I mean, I think that's so cool. For a while now, I've been thinking about like, oh, I mean, I've told Josie about this. I was like, there's so many things that I want to do. We were messaging about this, especially because your husband is a musician as well. And I was like, oh my gosh, but I was like, should I just hone in on just one thing and just make one project, one company, and pigeonhole myself in and focus on that? But really seeing, Helen, the numerous businesses that you have that focus on different subject matters and have different priorities is really cool to see, because it makes me question, why should I limit myself? But I also wanted to, before we have to set off, I wanted to say that, Kriza, you also mentioned that something you've been you've been thinking about is expressing your boundaries more clearly in a personal and professional setting. Do you want to chat a little more about that and what you've been thinking lately?
Like Helen said, I've kind of been a people pleaser a lot with my, especially always saying, yes, I can do this. Even though I already feel overwhelmed, I'm always like, oh, I can take on the job. Especially when I was in a setting when I worked in an agency at the time, because I felt like if I didn't do my part, I would be letting the team down, or like, oh, what's the point of me being there? So I think starting now, it helped me realize that when I express my boundaries more, people understand things better of what I am capable of doing and what's okay with me. So I know that my 10 when I'm at full capacity might be someone else's 3. So that person can help me as well. And I found that being more communicative, um, I think it's an obvious point, but some people forget that being more communicative in your relationship also helps as well. So talking about your boundaries can be hard with people who are you're close with, but at the end of the day, it's better that you're um, not comfortable, but it's better that you express those and that you don't face those issues later on of whether you resenting each other because you're not being honest.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't know what your feelings are about Brene Brown, because I know she's a bit hit and miss for people, but like I really like her, and I've just been listening to Rising Strong, and she talks about that a lot, particularly in relation to her husband and stuff, and this idea that if you don't communicate what you need and what you want, you're not going to get it, and then you just get annoyed because you don't get it, and it builds, and you have to have that. I can't remember what she calls it now, I've totally blanked, but yeah, she calls it like whatever, that's my story kind of thing, of what is going on in your head is different to what's actually being portrayed, and then you've got to align those before you can, you know, start seeing the impact and things. And I was doing that, I was getting really frustrated with clients because of them not delivering or messing me around with timings and stuff like that. It's still a little bit now, but that's because I've not put boundaries in place that will achieve that. So, you know, and it's harder to do it after the event. so yeah, being aware of these things and doing them up front is so key to just getting that communication right. Sure. Yeah.
I also really like oh, sorry.
Go on, sorry.
No, I was just
no.
I really liked what Pisa said, where she says my 10 could be somebody else's 3.
Yeah.
And not having any shame around that, right? But people have different energy waves, and they have it different times, and they have it for different things. And to go ahead, ask for help and to build on something together is something that I think I know I could definitely learn that and continue to learn that.
Someone said to me, my first ever job, Helen, you've got to stop expecting people to work at your speed. And that was a real like, oh, others don't? Like, what? And that's always kind of stuck with me. And someone actually said it in the last job I was in before freelance, of like, you expect everyone to work to your standard, which is like up here. And they don't even know that. They don't know that standard. You know, their standard is about a 3 or 4. Like, oh, all right, I'm doing that again, am I? So yeah, it is. It's one, and you've got to as well, I mean, in all aspects of life, really think about what's going on for the other people. Everyone has stuff going on. So someone might not have got back to you, someone might not have provided you with something you need, but there might be a reason for that. And it's funny how since I've been a lot more open about stuff, and I've written the book and I talk about health and whatever, I'm very open with my clients about the MS. They come back and tell me like, oh yeah, I've had a nightmare with such and such, or my mum's ill, or, you know, and they will be a little open with you in return, and it leads to much better communication between you and a better relationship most of the time, if you can get to that point of being comfortable to do that. Yeah, it's what wonders for me with the NHS clients, who you'd think should understand, but I also have a massive battle with the NHS at the moment, but that's a separate thing, health-wise.
Yeah,
there's no irony that the project I'm bidding for tomorrow is about helping people with multiple chronic illnesses. I was like, oh, right, okay, that's kind of needed.
You're just looking at your screen, you're like, wow, the irony is not lost.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly how to do that. Yeah.
I liked that you mentioned, Helen, that people sometimes don't deliver stuff because they might have something going on, because I think sometimes people forget that we are people outside of our work, and sometimes people do tend to forget that we do other things outside of our job. So it's good to remember that as well. Like, it might be frustrating on both of our ends, but at the end of the day, we're we need to take a step back and rest as well.
Absolutely. And I always think if there's something going to happen and you can't deliver or something's wrong, if you're open about it and they know, it stops them getting stressed. It stops you getting tense thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to deliver this. So I'm just really upfront with stuff now. And just like, if they're saying to me, oh, this is needed by such and such, and I'm like, well, you know what, you didn't deliver it on time, so I need an extension of time as well. And you've also lost the days that you had got booked in. So now you're going to have to wait. And having that conversation actually can actually get more respect, because you're not sitting there getting stressed and worried and doing all-nighters to try and do this thing. But actually, when you get to the bottom of it, they go, oh, the deadline's not urgent anyway. You're like, why was it there anyway then? So often, like, people say to me, can I have this next week? And I'm like, is it really needed next week? And they go, no, it'd just be nice. Well, you're not getting it. Yeah. So yeah, conversation, communication, my God, they're good, but so hard to do sometimes.
I think you've made some excellent points about bringing the human back into the workplace, Helen, and a lot of incredible examples of how to do that, how to jazz ourselves up. I'm gonna wrap up our conversation here today. And thank you everyone for joining wherever you are in the world right now. Are there any final questions, any final remarks that, since we do the close up production, anything solid we want to say out there to the production team as they close out? It's like, wow, guess it's all about communication, being real, and X, Y, and Z. The sentence just ended. It wasn't. Anyone got anything stronger than that?
You know what? The one I love that I actually put on the badge with the cloud was the statement, be yourself, others will adapt. And I love that idea that, that's all that's needed. They will have to adapt to it. You be you. It shouldn't be you adapting for the people. I really like that as a sum up of be you, others will adapt.
We got it. Okay.
I'll send you the badge.
Yes.